Hi, my name's Kate. I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer this year in July of 2024. I'm 36 years old. I'm mother of two children. I have a 5-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. I'm not married, but might as well should be. We've been together for 12 and a half years. I'm a program manager for the Department of Defense, the United States Air Force specifically. My hobbies include like baking, cooking, playing outside with my kids, snowboarding, um, all kinds of things. I was diagnosed because I actually ended up in the hospital with a bowel obstruction. And so that was really the first like big sign that something was wrong. I thought it was maybe appendicitis, or I just like had like severe constipation. And so I called my doctor and they recommended that I went to get to the like an urgent care center or the ER to get a scan because they thought maybe appendicitis as well. And so I got a CAT scan done at the urgent care where they found several masses, is what they said, in my intestines, and another mass they found outside of my intestines as well in that scan. And so I was hospitalized for about a week, a little over a week, where they like had to pump my stomach and try and relieve the pressure before they could do any kind of testing to see what the cause was. They originally thought maybe Crohn's, um, and then they weren't sure what the mass outside my intestines were, so they were skeptical or hesitant to treat Crohn's, just because they weren't sure what it was. And so after I was out of the hospital, I went and got a colonoscopy done, and I had a biopsy done on the mass, and both confirmed my colon cancer. But prior to that, like now looking back after that, there were a lot of symptoms that I was having that I just kind of like chalked up to being, a mother of young kids, or, a lot of like different things hormonally. One of the biggest symptoms was bloating. So, in summer of 2023, I started noticing I was having like a lot of bloating, more so than I've ever had ever. Um, and so I thought it was, I had kind of changed my diet up a little bit. So I thought it was maybe like I had reintroduced dairy into my diet at this point. I was looking for supplements and different things to try and help with the bloating, and nothing was working. Um, and like severe exhaustion, like that was one of the big symptoms, like really feeling fatigue all the time. And my job was super stressful. I have two young kids. Like I just thought it was all explained like through that. And then also like severe cramps and period pains I was having, which again, like I had two children via C-section, so I thought, this was just the new norm for me. I was going to have period, like more severe period pains because of the way I had my children. I'm mostly frustrated with myself for not taking it more seriously. I think I didn't realize bloating was such a big sign of something like seriously wrong. I thought it was a common thing that people went through every day. And in reality, it was like a clear sign that there was something wrong, and I should have been more serious about getting to the bottom line rather than trying to find a way to like, do it on my own. I should have, I wish there was like more resources and more information that like bloating is bad. You should find the root cause of it before you start taking supplements and this and that to get rid of it. When I was in the hospital, I felt like there was just, without the doctors and surgeons saying it, it just felt so serious there. By the time I did hear that I had cancer, it was one of those things that I like kind of knew it was coming. Like I was just like prepared for it. But even still, it just felt like a very out of body experience. Like it wasn't me experiencing it. It was like me watching somebody else experience this. With my kids, they're so young, and so they understood that mommy was sick, and so they saw They got to visit me when I was in the hospital. Once I like was like in a state that was like towards the end of my visit where I was able to like walk around and stuff, and it wasn't so traumatizing for them. So they were able to kind of like have that memory of me in the hospital and use that as like when I go for my treatments. And so we used that as like a way to talk about it. Um, and since then, we've kind of started using the word cancer and telling them more like, cancer's not contagious. Mommy didn't get it from anybody. You can't get it. And just very simple ways of telling them. I think everyone, because they all knew I was in the hospital and they were all just so concerned about what it was. Um, we just stuck to the facts because stage 4 cancer is a very scary diagnosis, and a lot of people took that as like, oh my gosh, like thinking I was dying. um and so whenever I discussed it with them, I stuck to the facts, like this is where it's spread, this is where it hasn't spread. I'm very young. We can kill the cancer and keep it from spreading. And then like there's surgery, and the surgeon that I spoke to, he's had a lot of patients at stage 4 and are cancer free now. Originally, they were going to do surgery to remove that part of my intestines because they thought it was Crohn's. Um, and I guess that's what they normally would do. But because they had found that other mass, I think they kind of knew it was probably cancer without knowing. And so they took a very conservative approach where they took the pressure off of my intestines and colon. So they pumped my stomach for I think 5 days they pumped, but that took the pressure off of my intestines and was able to allow the obstruction to kind of clear enough where things were actually moving the way they were supposed to, which allowed me to avoid surgery. And then I just have been on a strict, like, no fiber diet since then to avoid any other bowel obstructions. So I can keep doing the chemo first and then do the surgery after the chemo. The decision to do chemo first, because the cancer was stage 4 and had already showed signs that it had metastasized outside of the colon, they were concerned that surgery would delay and cause more spreading, especially if there were cancer cells in other parts of my body that just have not metastasized yet. And then the surgery was to come after, and that surgery was hopefully just to clean up whatever cancer cells were like remaining. Chemo has been it's been a lot of ups and downs. So I get chemo every other week. Since it started in August 1st. So I just completed round 7 last week. 7 of hopefully only 8 rounds. I got scans done after 4 rounds, and they showed signs that things were shrinking, the chemo was working, and nothing else has spread. Symptoms have been, so it's funny, they give you a lot of medications to help with the side effects of the chemo, but with those medications come their own side effects as well. So it's kind of like each round I have to kind of pick what side effects I want to have, because I can't really avoid all of them. But the worst one of it all is the fatigue, um, especially the days right after. I'm just so exhausted, and exhaustion I never experienced even having 2 kids. Um, but that's the worst. And then the nausea has been a little bit rough. The last like 4 or 5 rounds, the nausea has gotten worse, which I thought would have gotten better, but it seems to have gotten worse. And I've had what they thought was an allergic reaction to the chemo. Um, during one of the first couple treatments, I've had like they were hot flashes and like heart racing, um, and like lightheadedness. And so they had to kind of change the way they administered the chemo, which created a lot of other stress. And then I now had to go see a cardiologist, so like had to add all of those kind of tests into my whole treatment plan and pause chemo to make sure my heart was healthy enough to keep going. So it's been like a roller coaster of one thing after the next, and like no real answers, but just doing the best to keep me safe through it and making sure that I can get the chemo because the chemo is working. And so that's our number one priority, is to make sure like I'm healthy enough to get the chemo so that the chemo can do its job. First, it was a lot of anxiety, a lot of like high anxiety. I've been working with a psychiatrist and therapist to help with that. So I'm on anti-anxiety meds that seem to be helping. Um, they're not, they're obviously not miracle workers and can't like take all of it away, but it does help with like I was having panic attacks, and so not having those anymore. So that's been great. And I'm able to sleep too, so that's also helpful because insomnia was also an issue with it. But like the last month or so, I've just kind of been like blah, like just in this like fog, it feels like. And not really sure what emotion I have. Like I'm not angry, I'm not sad, but I'm also like not happy or whatever. And just kind of like this like shell of a person, it kind of feels like just getting through it. And it just feels like mentally like everything is just on pause for me. And like once I get through this, maybe things will start to be able to like process through. I feel like before I was way more like headstrong about it and like we're gonna get through this, I'm gonna do this, and and it's kind of like taken me down a little bit, where I don't know if it's humbled me or just like weakened me. um so right now I just feel like a little bit weaker than I normally would, and I'm hoping that like once I get through it, I'll be able to build my strength back up and be that same person who's like, okay, I fought this, I can do whatever else comes at me. My kids are definitely 100% it. They've like being the best version of myself for them is really my ultimate goal, and it's hard because during the chemo you're not the best version of yourself, and I like you see in your kids like where you're failing or where you've kind of like taken a step back. And so I like see where those effects are coming, and it's hard because there's really nothing I can do about it right now, and I just have to like watch them suffer while I suffer. So they're my why. Since the beginning of like my diagnosis, like the doctors, my oncologist and the surgeon that I met with have all, they all normally I'm a very healthy person. Like I work out, I eat healthy. And so they've always been adamant that I have that as like going for me. And so that because of all that, there's like no doubt that I can't beat this. And so from day one of my diagnosis, they've been instilling that hope in me that like, even though we're having these setbacks, like you're still so young, you're still so strong and so healthy, like you still have every ability to defeat this with where we're at. For me, that's been like the most frustrating part is like, I've done everything right and I still got diagnosed with a stage 4 cancer. Putting your health first is always the most important thing, especially as a mother, but even as an individual. Um, Putting your health first is not only like your physical health, not even talking mental health, but putting your physical health first and like not excusing little things like, even though bloating and fatigue are things that, most people probably do experience, um, pay attention to it, like pay attention to like the little things too, and don't be afraid to bring it up to your doctors, um, and to ask your doctors for, extensive testing, because even at your preventative, your yearly checkups, sometimes they don't check for things. Use the facts to your advantage, and take the data and the facts. I mean, even though I was diagnosed with stage 4, I was lucky where it hasn't metastasized, to my lungs and other places where I can still, have a good chance to fight it. Process what's happening to you, because it's so easy to spiral and and to let the cancer diagnosis become you. but if you use the facts, maybe you can, you know, find a way to be bigger than it, I guess.